How are you all?
Good, thanks, Bob. We're being live streamed already.
Okay. I won't tell you what I was going to say then.
No, please don't.
Morning, all.
How are you?
Yeah. Yep. Still here, still breathing.
Always an
We're
advantage.
being live streamed already.
Yep. I didn't swear, did I?
But I note that live streaming should not start until the meeting starts.
Oh.
Judith, is that your age at that number on the back there?
Yes, permanent.
I thought
actually-
it was about right.
Yeah, no, it's not shifting at all. It's actually my house number, and I've been meaning to put it up at some gateway or another, but I've never got round to it.
Oh, right.
I bought it in Italy, somewhere in Tuscany. So it
Ah,
does mean something.
I thought you might have said it was a birthday card and you'd had it for 3 years.
6 months. No, I don't know whether I'd want to be 40 again.
Oh,
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Stephen here. I'm just helping Therese get set up for the live stream. So while Therese is helping John, I think, get logged in at the moment. So just a reminder that the meeting is live streamed, so keep your microphones on mute if you're not speaking. And if you do have YouTube, the YouTube feed running, it's probably best if you turn it off or mute it, because it's on a time delay and the sound would interfere with what you're hearing through the meeting. So I can't hear it coming through from anyone, but just a word of caution on that. But hopefully you should be all good to go once Therese is back and ready to start.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. You there, Trace? I've had a wee technical, so I've sent it across to my personal computer. And I'll turn that off, turn the phone off.
Sean,
Yep.
you're on the call.
Right. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? At the moment, I've got no. Can you hear me?
So I can hear you, Jam.
Oh, you can hear me, Karen. What about everybody else? Jenny, Bill, Bob?
Yes, I can.
Judith?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry about the delay, but I had to try another device. So I'll take the opportunity to open the meeting and welcome everybody from the board, and welcome anybody who from the general public has also taken the time to join us. So I'll go to the agenda. It's been recorded, fine. Welcome. I have an apology from the Mayor, Sam Broughton. Are there any other apologies? No. Would someone like to move that those apologies be accepted, please? Move Ken, seconded Karen. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Identification of extraordinary business. No. Okay, item 2. Item 3, conflicts of interest. Are there any change of conflicts of interest? No. Public forum. There is no public forum, is there? Madam Secretary?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So can we move to confirmation of minutes of the meeting Monday, the 28th of February on Zoom? Would someone like to move and second those minutes? Oh, there is an alteration, is there not, Judith? Judith?
I sent a note round to everybody
Yes.
regarding the extract about, or in my report, suggesting some alternative wording, because I didn't actually think that it reflected what I said. And I asked that the wording there be replaced with, I felt that the 2 existing staff members would find it difficult to manage all the reserves and so on, and could need extra resources. The committees are able to identify problems at individual reserves and notify these to council, and also identify possible future development projects.
Okay, Douglas, the process for alteration in that particular case is if the members of the board accept that, that becomes an alteration?
Yes, it does.
Yep,
Mr.
that's
Chair.
fine.
Okay, so are we in agreement that those wording that Judith has suggested gets added to the minutes, and then we look to approve those minutes?
Yes, I agree.
Right. So would someone like to move that with that alteration, that the minutes be a true and accurate record, please?
I'll do that.
Moved by Karen Mears. Could I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor Bob Mugford. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you.
And I have sent that by email, so there is a copy with
Yes,
the board
correct.
secretary.
So going back to the agenda, the next actions from the last meeting, which are in the agenda. And I'm just turning the page. So there are the community hub with a comment, discretionary funding done, discretionary fund will the balance be carried over, the balance will be carried over, communication with Malvern ward committees, reserves and halls to be sent to the board. The request has been made before and is still considered to be impractical. Now that is a reply that, once again, and I think this request came from you, Judith, originally.
It did, and I sent round a supplementary board report to my original one on the 23rd, giving asking for a little bit more clarification about what is impractical, and actually suggesting how it could very easily be done, and pointing out that the councillors on the board do not go to the meetings. It is the board members that go to the meetings as representatives of council and the board. And really it is showing that they're not valued at all to make them party to the official communication.
I must say, Judith, I have a lot of sympathy for your view. It is very difficult if you go to a meeting and you do not have the same level of information that the secretary and the chairman has of that meeting.
Yes.
But obviously I'd like to hear from other board members.
Surely, John, it's just a case of actually putting the community board email addresses into whatever's going out, one click. I mean, I just can't see a problem. I don't know what the difficulty is.
I tend to have sympathy with that view. But what is other views?
I agree. I don't like being on the back foot when I go to a meeting and then you're expected to have a response to something you don't know very much about. And quite a lot of my committees, I'm very fortunate that Melissa includes me in communications and Coleridge always includes me. But there are times that I do get caught on the back foot with various things. And I have to just say, I'm sorry, but I haven't been told about this. I don't see why. Look, even if these things go to Therese, if it's easier, they don't want to put the community board in and she can forward them to us. I'm not quite sure why the email address can't be just added in with the others.
Could we not have a compromise here that the information goes to the secretary and the secretary could do a bit of sieving and send it on to us?
I really feel that's putting more work on our board secretary when really all that is needed, and I said in there that the way they'll do it, they've either got a database of group emails or they've got a spreadsheet, and they simply need to add it into the group email. Instead of having 3 names in there, they'll have 4. It's not particularly difficult. Perhaps Mr. Marshall might like to comment.
You got any thoughts on this, Douglas?
He doesn't have to.
Would you prefer to perhaps make a comment that it is a chief executive administrational matter?
It's about my pay grade, Mr. Chairman.
Well, the board has an opportunity to say, well, we acknowledge the answer. We still do not think that is acceptable.
Yes.
And fair enough. I think you've put a practical solution to the chief executive, and let's see what feedback he gives you.
Okay, so can we agree that the minutes would show we have acknowledged the comment, but we do not accept that comment, and we look for a solution that is going to assist the board members from doing their job. Bill?
You can't hear me.
Yes,
Yes, we can.
I've got your picture, but I can't get back onto Zoom for some
I
We
can
reason.
hear
can
you, though.
hear you and we can
Hear
see
you.
you.
We can see you and hear you.
Oh, yeah. There.
Yeah. Yep. And we just wondered whether you had a comment about this, the information about actions followed up about the inability for the board members to get the same information that secretaries and chairmen of committees are getting.
Yeah. That's,
Yep.
Could
Okay.
I point out that the chief executive did receive a copy of the supplementary board report, so he will be aware.
Yeah.
Of,
But I am in your hands for instructions as a board as to what action you would like to follow.
I agree, John. I think that you should pursue it because there's nothing more embarrassing than going to meetings. As Karen and everyone says, you go to a meeting and everyone knows more about what's happening than you do, and it is quite embarrassing. So I don't see why the board shouldn't be informed at least as much as the committees.
And I don't think it matters if all the board members are copied into everything, it's fine. Everyone knows what's going on. I don't think they have to try and work out which board member should go to which amount of correspondence. I think just have a thing there that says Malvern Community Board and incorporates all of us for each.
Could I suggest that perhaps the chair and Mr. Marshall discuss this with the chief executive?
Okay, I'll accept that
discussion at the
suggestion.
meeting.
Yeah, I'll accept that suggestion from you, Judith, and we will, Douglas and I will follow that up and see if we can find a pragmatic solution that would satisfy everybody. All right. Okay, thank you. Moving on, back to the agenda, which is on to, where are we? Oh, correspondence, Madam Secretary. Is there any correspondence?
None received, Mr. Chair.
Right, thank you. On to reports. I have filed a report. There's not much in it. I've had the wonderful experience of having COVID for 7 or 8 days along with Meg, so that's been something not to get too excited about, but now seem to be out of it. As a number of my community, and I'm sure you all know of people who have also experienced having COVID, as far as that goes. But I will move my report as is written in the board papers. If someone would like to second it, please. Seconded, Ken, thank you. All in favour, please say aye. Carrie, is there any comments anybody wants to make before we move forward? I have made a comment there about Springfield. I know that there is work going on all the time, and I know there is a very good dialogue between Jock Dawson, chairman of the Township Committee, and Murray Washington, the chief executive, which is pleasing. Whether that will accelerate the fact that as a resident I can turn the tap and have potable water, I'm not sure, but I hope so. I'm not sure whether you want to make any comment about Springfield, Douglas.
I think the key point to note would be there is a great focus on this community, and clearly an unacceptable situation. It gets discussed at management each week, and it is discussed at council every fortnight. So, and we're all well aware of the physical challenges, but it is I know they're exploring a couple other options at the moment. I would like to think that there won't be any stone left unturned, just trying to find an outcome. I suppose one of the key things was finding the slip a few weeks back, which is obviously part of the challenge. So, yeah.
Douglas, if there is a solution found, will it have to go through an annual plan process to get a financial allocation to solve that solution, to fund that solution?
No, I wouldn't think so. Water's got budgets, and remember the Springfield water supply comes out of the district water supply account, so it's not as if its funding's only coming from Springfield and it might increase the Springfield water rates. It's a district-wide solution, and water is a fundamental service. So the biggest issue would be if it was a dollar value that was unrealistic, for argument's sake, then that might require some further consultation. But that we just have to wait and see where it comes to.
I'm pleased to hear that, because it would be disappointing if a long-term solution was not able to be activated quickly because it had to go through a financial process to be approved. That would seem to be really disappointing in light of the one rate across the district, which was the whole purpose of creating that rate, to be able to have the fund to be able to meet the needs of communities such as Springfield.
Yeah, I mean, one point to probably note though, as we are talking about a long-term plan process or an annual plan process, but you can still carry out some form of consultation under more of an urgency if it was needed, without waiting for an annual plan or a long-term plan process. But again, that would need to be because it was felt to be outside, say, a financial parameter that was reasonable or something else. But let's see what the solutions start to roll out.
This would be a very interesting example if the Three Waters went ahead as to how Springfield would go in that process, wouldn't it? Am I correct that council voted against Three Waters, Councillor Mugg, this week?
They voted against going with Dan. They're staying with working with the government individually.
Okay, so I'm incorrect there. So they are actually voted to stay with the proposal of the government's Three Waters at this stage.
Yes.
Whether or not it goes ahead politically or not, we're not sure at this stage, or the timing.
Yep.
Okay.
John,
yes.
John, I just had a question about the Springfield water supply. I know when we discussed it at the meetings that we had at Springfield, somebody suggested that Central Plains had rather a large reservoir of water, and we were told that the water was not suitable for use by the township. Given that all else might either be too expensive or fail, there are a great many cities and towns around New Zealand that take their water from lakes, and it's not really the water in the lake, it's how you treat it once you extract it from the lake. Is there any real reason why we couldn't cooperate with Central Plains and drag it from the lakes?
I don't have an answer for you there, Douglas, but Councillor Mugford does have a comment to make.
Yeah, just everything is being looked at the moment, Judith. We're going back to the board, and everything is being looked at, everything that's possible, to try and get a resolution as soon as possible. So yeah, they are being looked at.
That's very pleasing to hear.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other further comments, questions? You're closer to the action, Bill. You're on that water scheme. Oh, just come back to you in a minute, Ken. Have you got any comments, Bill?
No, not a great deal. I've talked to them, but that's about all. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and because I'm at the end of the scheme, I don't get the discoloration of water and all the rest of it like everybody else. It seems to settle before it gets to me. Yeah.
So Donald Wright's made the comment they're getting pretty lousy water, and he's probably beyond you. But anyway, Ken.
Yeah, I know that they're investigating with Central Plains Water, primarily taking it from the intake rather than from the ponds. So, you know, that may have a bit more promise, because the water out of the Rakaya and the Waimax probably better than a lot of the other sources.
Yeah, I think that the basis of the problem is that the water, which is basically below that, once it passes that slip, is basically discoloured. Yep. And that slip is always going to continue to ooze and create discoloration, and it's impractical to remove it, so it's going to be a challenge, isn't it?
Yep.
But I'm very comforting to hear from Councillor Mugford that all possibilities, including the possibility of talking to CPW about the last reservoir, they are all being considered to solve the problem. Thank you. I made another comment there about community committees. I think we are still in a bit of confusion, but we are slowly starting to see the fog clear as communities decide what they want to do. And if we use Horrada, for example, they want one committee. Glen Tunnel have committed to one committee, though that does not involve the reserve. And there are a number of communities who still wish to have a community group that will represent them to council. Is that the same comment from everybody else?
Yeah, well, our team want to retain what they've got anyway.
Yep. Yeah. And option one seems to be the popular one amongst communities. Is that not correct?
Sorry?
Option one appears to be the common selected by communities that I've had contact with.
Yeah, no, we want option two.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Option two,
Yeah.
righto.
Yep.
Are there others that want option two?
Yeah,
No, most of my communities are option one.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
And I think the main thing that needs sorting out is the funding, but we got our letter from Denise after the last meeting, and then I could probably send this round you. The Colgate Township Committee asked a whole lot of questions, so I will forward them to you after this meeting if you'd like to see them as a board.
yes, please. I think that would be useful. We'd know what other communities are thinking. That would be
That's all right, isn't it, Bob?
Yeah. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Ken, did you have a comment? No. Okay.
Not
All right.
really. No.
No. Moving on to your report, Ken.
Yeah, self-explanatory. I don't think there's much I need to change. We've talked about the water.
Yep.
I understand there's a meeting on Thursday, 10
Right.
a.m. Up at Springfield. I presume it'll be at the hall.
I would presume so.
So see you there.
Okay. All right. So
Could
what?
I ask,
Sorry.
who got notice of that meeting?
Yeah, I didn't know about that meeting.
No, I don't know about it either.
I didn't know.
So is it Thursday, you think, Ken?
I have it, I believe,
It was on email.
Was it?
Yeah, but whose
Yeah.
email?
John.
The township committees.
Yes, Jenny.
I believe that meeting is only with staff and a few from that committee. It's not a
Right.
public meeting. That's
Okay,
what
well,
I've been told.
That's probably correct. It
Yes.
probably is. I know that the chief executive assured me at lunchtime today that he and other staff were in constant dialogue with Jock Dawson and we're meeting regularly and we're continuing that dialogue. So that may be just a physical meeting, a continuation of that process. And we're probably just really not open to us to attend anyway.
No, that is correct. It's just between David's staff and that committee.
Is Ken going to that meeting?
I don't know who's been asked. All is what I know. There was a few from that committee that David had been working with and staff.
Are you invited, councillors?
No,
No.
Well, it's unlikely that the community board member is going to get invited if the councillors are not invited.
well, that
But-
was.
But were you
that was my
intending to go,
feeling.
Ken?
Well, I got the notice from Emma.
Oh, well, you're included and that's, we're delighted. So you'll
Yeah.
represent the board, and so we'd be very pleased that you are going, and we'll get a report back in due course.
Yep,
Excellent. All right, would you like to move your report, please?
I'll move my report.
Moved, seconded, please. Thank you, Judith. All in favour that the report be
Aye.
accepted, please say aye. Thank you. Moving on to next is Judith's report. Are you with me, Judith?
Judith, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Judith.
Oh, right.
Right, so your
Rephrase.
report, please, Judith.
Right, we've talked about one, we've talked about two, and I did the task for number 3. The Greendale Recreation Reserve are considering their future, and they've got a number of options open to them, plus becoming amalgamated to the community committee there that looks after the Arboretum, etc. And
Right.
Kimberley Reserve, working very well with staff. The staff have been absolutely magnificent in working with that committee and doing the plantings and refurbishment of the hall. It's been excellent. So they've agreed that a formal community committee won't be needed. What they'd like to do is delegate 3 of the community members to be a contact for staff and to really keep an eye on things. It's such a little reserve that I don't think staff will be able to visit it very often, and they don't have a formal caretaker, of course. So they'll work with staff to have some lines of communication and give any assistance that might be needed. The Waterrace Bridge, as you turn onto Kimberley Road from Homebush Road, I think it is, if you're turning left, the bridge structure actually blocks your vision if you're in a car. It's okay if
they're white rails from memory, aren't they, Julia?
Yes, they're white rails, and they go right out to the edge of the seal.
Yep.
And it's okay if you're sitting in a Hilux or something like that, but if you're sitting in a low car, you cannot see left unless you poke yourself out.
Right.
And they've complained about this several times, but nobody's ever come back to them and said, we've looked at it, we haven't got a problem, or goodness, what are we going to do?
Could the board secretary please record that comment and for a comment from the staff about those rails, please?
Yes, thank you. I've done that.
Thank you. Back to you, Jill.
Thank you. They'll need to use a car.
Yep.
We didn't have enough members for the community committee. It was a harvesting evening, and they noted that the chorus subcontractors have done some very substandard work around the township, but they're being chased up. And I don't think there was anything there. They've agreed that they take option 1 of the committee options, and I'm encouraging them to work with the reserve and to hold a public meeting sometime in the middle of the year to actually bring together the 2 committees and perhaps form a blended committee of some kind with any other community members that might be happy to take part.
Yes, I'm pleased to report that in other areas, the work being done by Chorus or Chorus's subcontractors have been quite good in coming back and doing remedial work, allowing the trench to sink and then come back and properly tidy up. And that's been pretty obvious in most other communities. I'm not saying, it won't or will happen.
They're aware of that, and they're holding their breath.
Yeah. Well, they're busy digging down the main road out of Colgate and around there in Colgate and everywhere at the moment. And we'll be observing that they come back, and because it takes somewhere around about 2 or 3 months before you get that settlement down, and needs to be filled again and then seeded.
Yes.
Yes.
So
okay.
we're watching. The road out of Darfield, Tipworth Road.
Can I just refer you to your report in the Greendale Recreation? So is there an ongoing issue there of discussion between levels of standard?
Greendale.
Well, the cricket turf has not been replaced.
Yes. Yeah, they're working on that. I think committees had a very good idea of when cricket started on a reserve or rugby started and when things had to be done. It's a little bit harder for staff when they've got cricket starting at every single reserve around the district, expecting work to be done. And certainly this work was not up to standard. but they're working with the staff person who is managing that project, and she's been very good at getting all of the defects remedied. I think Douglas has a comment, because Douglas has been there looking at it several times.
Do you have a comment, Douglas?
We can't hear you.
No.
There we go. Put that bit down, might help. So there's one of those tests that just needs a wee bit of work on to be done, but you also get to the point, as Judy said, during the start of the season, you're just a bit late, so you've got to sort it out in the months after cricket's finished. What has been happening though is we're entering into an agreement with cricket at Greendale, because they're still very keen to maintain the pitch and the oval using the existing mower that John Clarkson's looked after for many years. So we've got an agreement between there. The only issue, which is fine, we'll make work, is that they don't want to mow everything, which we understand. So we've just got to work out how we mow the balance of that. But yeah, we had that side visit with John and Hugh. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Hugh from cricket last week. That's Jonathan and Craig. So I think we're almost there. We do have a bit of an issue in that the tennis court budget's not adequate to do anything, and we're just trying to work out whether we actually need to worry about it in the next, because the question I had was, well, how bad are these cracks? Are they really a major impact on the game? Can we just push out a year or two until we can just reallocate and get the budget that's needed to give it a complete resurface? The other thing too I haven't seen is use of that particular court compared to other courts, so that we can just make sure we are getting our priorities right in terms of use.
We were going to have a pole and net a basketball hoop put up. Is that still going ahead, Douglas?
Well, it might be the better solution for development on the reserve than a surface upgrade, if that makes sense. In other words, more bang for buck out of the basketball than, say, the surface redo, because we're not thinking it's quite as critical as other ones. So I know that's part of the staff discussion at the moment too.
Could I just take the opportunity here to follow on from Greendale for the benefit of the board, that a similar situation has arisen in Darfield, and I think you'll all be aware that the Darfield cricket team is the champion side for the limited over competition through Malvern, across Ellesmere and up into North Canterbury. They won that on Saturday. And it's been indicated to them there might be an opportunity for higher level cricket matches to take place in Darfield, which would be quite a coup for the community and be quite a bonus. Now, the standard of preparation of requiring gets a little higher when you want to get to that level. And there has been a comment back to the club, which I haven't been able to verify, that there was already sufficient mowing and more mowing that needs to be done. Now, the club have asked the question whether they would have the capacity maybe to do a little bit of something like what Greendale is suggesting, where they may do a little bit more just to give that extra standard or that lift. So are we setting a precedent or a pattern that possibly we can follow, taking Greendale's lead here, Douglas?
Just remembering we have a caretaker at Darfield anyway,
Yes,
who does the mowing. I mean, not telling anyone how to suck eggs, but with cricket fields, and just ignore the pitch for a moment, with cricket fields, you generally try and do a mow maybe 3 times a fortnight. There's obviously a strong preference that you would mow it twice a week. Just have to balance that budget out though, between twice a week and how much fert and how much water you're applying. So it's just that balance between factors. But we're well aware that, and senior cricket is an issue, but there's nothing worse than junior cricket with clumped grass. So I think we've got around that problem, and we've mow better. The standard though of cord mowing gear is superior to what they now currently own. Now the issue about standard, John, is we would work with Canterbury Country Cricket to understand grass wickets. The best one at the moment, I think I'm standard corrected, is at Leaston, and there's obviously a good one at Whedon. So we just work with Canterbury Country as to what is their preference there, because they can become quite time consuming, and you do need someone who's reasonably passionate. I mean, one of the long-term thoughts we've had is on the district park, if or when that's developed, whether cricket might be best for senior cricket, whether it's all played there each Saturday, and we have, say, 4 to 5 grass pitches that are centrally maintained. That's something we would talk to cricket though about to see whether that would work. And I know in a meeting that was raised about 18 months ago, there was a bit of sort of thinking, no, it could be quite good actually if you get one central quality where all the teams play. But we're a long way from having that, making that decision. But
that would be okay, Douglas, if I lived around Rolleston, but being quite parochial, that would be very disappointing for my home team and my home match, wouldn't it?
the great thing though, it's right by that magnificent grade interchange, John, and that widened Whedon's Ross Road, and therefore it's just a hop, skip and a jump down the road.
Fair enough. The other comment you made comment about watering. Well, this year you've watered the pitch to excessive amounts because you forgot to turn the irrigator off, and one mow. It's required to maintain it, and I've mowed a lot of grass in the last few months myself. It needs 2 mows a week, Douglas, to maintain your standard. This year is an exception, and there should be enough flexibility in the system to read the weather, because I understand the contract is written around height of grass, is it not?
Yeah, but with cricket pitches, it can be, and I'm just guessing here, it can be a 20 mil as opposed to a 40 mil. So they get a different standard. And there's also collection at some stages. But it just come back, the question you first raised in Darfield, and maybe we're dragging this on about, was the quality of the pitch for the future for that team, as opposed to the quality of mowing? Or am I missing?
Well, it's a quality of preparing a suitable, it's not only the wicket, it's also the outfield, Douglas. But look, I just want to highlight, these are some of the pointy bits, particularly when we get in the season, which could only be described as probably 1 in 20 or 30 years. This year really stretches you to deliver that quality. Moving on. So would you like to move your report, please? Or have you moved it, Jules? No?
I will, but I'd just first of all like to ask Douglas if he would perhaps communicate with the Greendale Reserve Committee just what the options and dilemmas and plans are for the tennis court, because they are really thinking that perhaps something was promised to them, but now they're getting no action at all.
Yeah, I can. Since you've written that report, I can't confirm, but I think our staff will have had some comment with the committee, but that will occur because they sit on our box and move. Yeah, my guys need to do something with it. So
please move the report, Jules.
Thank you. Right, I'll move my report.
And could I have a seconder, please? Where are we? Thank you, Councillor Mugford. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. On to you, Board Member Bill, for your report, which we have here. Do you wish to make comments to it, or you just want to move it?
No, just it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just that the little bus shelters.
Yep.
That the People's Collective, or local club as it's called now, have erected. They've got those 20-kilometre signs on them, but nothing to. The other ones have got that pass to stop school bus in both directions is underneath the 20 Ks, and it's not on these ones. And of course, strangers going down there might think it's down to 20 Ks, and could be confusing. So I just wondered, as hope that this wording will be added. I don't know whose responsibility is to check on it, but there's no problem with them having the 20 Ks there, but it's only for when the buses are stopped, right, or the kids are outside. But,
yeah, is that not the law, Bill, that when passing a school bus at any time?
Yes, yeah, it is the law. Yeah, but there's a 20-kilometre sign with the red band around it, which looks like an official sign.
Yeah.
But all the other bus shelters, that have been put up with total span, have got past a stopped school bus.
Right. Okay.
And whether they're arranging to do that or not, I'm not too sure. But if the traffic guys could follow that up, that would be really good.
Bill, there's a comment, and this to you and to Douglas. Is there a suggestion or discussion about a new toilet block, Douglas?
Yes. Yeah. That's and of course that's come from there's a guy Warren and he's
Cameron War.
Sorry,
Cameron
War.
Yeah.
And Douglas, would that mean it would be closer to the road?
Yes.
And would it be supplementary to the ones over by the test?
Yes. Yeah. What had happened was they were going to pull down the old ones, and of course it's just been refurbished. Yeah.
I know.
And we wrote to them and said that we welcome the idea of new toilets and what have you, but stuck where they are now doesn't really help for travellers at night time and what have you, because there's no lighting and all the rest of it. If it could be put up closer to the road, that would be a far better position for them to be. Yep. Plus, it would actually help when we have the likes of the AMP show on and what have you, have extra toilets there. And they've agreed to that. And they've put out a proposal, but I contacted the Reserve Committee to get their impressions on it as well. And I rang Karen Battersby today, but I didn't get any reply. So I'll continue to follow that up, and of course there'll be a full report in our next meeting.
Right. Is it envisaged that you would be able to use those toilets off the road without necessarily entering the main gates of the reserve?
Yeah. No, you wouldn't have to go through the main gates. You'd come off the road to use them. Just up past the sign. There was two proposals. The staff agreed with us not to pull the old ones down and to shift them up closer so they could be, and we could put lights up there because there's power poles and all the rest of it to remove the apprehension of people in the darkness, and to save as many trees as possible so we don't have to cut down any trees.
Is this qualified for the tourist fund, Douglas?
Sorry?
Yes, no, it's come from the Tourism Infrastructure Fund. Bill's covered all the key points. Just one thing though, we will still encourage people to drive into the domain, mainly to get them off the road. Because that shoulder there is a little bit, well, it's all right, but I suppose we did and ah about whether we put a bit of a lay-by in there, but that does get you into discussions with NZ Te Takahi, which you don't want to really do. So Bill's right, some may not, but we'd still encourage people in that way. I think the great thing is, and I'll talk about it shortly, we're getting this modern network of toilets up State Highway 73, and similarly across the top, across 77, and then down through State Highway 1 and 75. So I think that's the positive one. So yeah, committee been good, and Bill's been helpful up there very much.
Bill, going to your report, and I see you made a comment about Anzac Day. Douglas, would your reading of the situation be with changes that Anzac services would now be able to take place?
Well, the way the rules were until next weekend, of course, we weren't allowed to have any more than 100 people collecting, and we get over 100 people at the Anzac parade. And so we had a bit of a discussion and said, well, we were going to have something. We will raise the flags there, or put the flags there, and then we possibly will have something like so that people can go and put a poppy there or something, by themselves, just to acknowledge the fact, because we don't want Anzac Day to go by unrecognised.
I think with the easing of regulations and the latest announcements, you'll be free to have a service with as many people as you like.
Well, we're allowed up to 2. So we'll wait and see what the council say about Anzac Days, because I should imagine there will be an announcement from council to say that Anzac Day parades will take place as normal.
The wreaths have been ordered by the order has been placed with the wreath maker for all those wreaths to be made.
Yeah, but our main concern was to make sure that Anzac Day is recognised by the locals in Sheffield anyway.
Right. Okay.
I think wasn't there a national comment about Anzac Day though a few weeks back, which was indicating Anzac Day, as we'd normally expect, wouldn't proceed? So I think what Bill said is fine, but I just think we just need to probably just hold back on a view just till we get that national understanding and then what our local response can be. Because we have smaller numbers and quite right, but there was it might be just not quite the same flavour, but still possible to do something anyway.
But this was actually only a plan B if it didn't go ahead, right? Yeah.
There was an announcement by Royal New Zealand RSAs a couple of weeks back that all Anzac Day parades had been cancelled. They wouldn't be held. So whether or not that's changed with the change of COVID thing, I don't know. But, you would need to go to the president of NZRSA.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we wouldn't have a parade or anything. We would just make it so that people could go and visit the cenotaph themselves and show a recognition by taking a poppy or a flower, and it would all be recorded there, and we would put up the two flags like we normally do, Australia and New Zealand flags, on that particular day. So at least anybody going past or something would know, or anybody in the area would know that we're recognising that day, even though we're not having a parade.
Yep. I think you'll find that there will be plenty of publicity and plenty of clarification over the next 2 or 3 weeks as to what can or cannot happen with the changes. And I think we'll have ample opportunity to react to that and proceed accordingly.
Yeah. But as I say, we're just planning a plan B in case it is cancelled. Yeah.
All right. Would you like to move your report, please, Bill?
Yeah, I'll move my report.
Moved, Bill, seconded by Ken. All in favour the report be received, please say aye. Thank you. Verbal report, Councillor Mugford. Oh, hang on, Karen. We haven't done. Sorry, Karen.
Karen.
Yeah, sorry, Karen.
I didn't put a report in because I haven't been to any meetings because they've all got put off, but I have still been doing a lot of work in my communities with this ongoing business with the community decisions. There's quite a lot of activity at Coleridge at the moment with playground and the flooding and a few other various things. Bob and I were up there for a meeting in February, and it absolutely poured down, and all the water, we went and had a look, went round the East Bend, completely missed all the sump holes and sailed off in various directions down the hill. And so we went and looked at the other side by the powerhouse, and the same thing was happening there. So Bob and I have been doing a bit of work there. And so I've just been quietly working away with all my communities. There's a notice board at Glen Tunnel I'm working on, and I've been in constant contact with my committees. So it's just all background work that's been happening at the moment.
I see there's been a bit of work done in the last week at the side of the hall in Glen Tunnel there, Bob.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll do that in mine.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Karen, we'll acknowledge your verbal report. Thank you. And now I'll go to Councillor Mugford. Thank you.
Yeah, I went to the Colgate Township meeting for Karen the other night, and they looked at they want to go to option 1, but they had a few questions mainly on money, finances and that sort of thing, bank accounts, that type of thing. So they're quite sold on that. We had a discussion on the paper roads, which have been legalised into council in Colgate, and they've come up with a policy of if there were 2 adjoining neighbours, that they would be entitled to use half each if they applied to council. Council staff had already asked me if I would do that so that they've got something to work on, because we've got a few problems in Colgate with different people. So if we come up with a policy that everyone was with, that would work well. Also had people from Darfield, the community patrol on cameras in Colgate, and they've got some plans done, and they've got looking at about 10 cameras. The big thing now will be financing them, which they will work on. Glen Tunnel, there's been flooding, as some of you know. So I've had a meeting with I've had what's drainage? Daniel. I've had a meeting with Daniel, and he's looking into that. And as Karen mentioned at Coleridge, apparently there's a design engineer has done the work for sorting out Coleridge, and I've been told I'll get it sooner or later, but I haven't seen it yet. So when I do that, I'll give it to Karen. The other thing, the shed has been done at the Glen Tunnel Hall, and I'm seeing that they were grading the piece between the shed and the hall today. There was someone in there,
Okay,
but I was quite impressed with what they've done, and rung up and said that when can I move in. So they said they'd put a bed in there anytime, so that was fine. The other thing, I've been to Springfield and met up with a couple of people about the water that want to talk to me. I've done that. And a question of Bill is, do you know if the school signs have been taken off the Riwi Alley signs yet?
You're on mute, Bill. That's better, yeah.
Yeah. No, they haven't. I was up there about 3 days ago, and they've altered the date to the Labour weekend.
Yeah,
and they haven't been taken off yet.
No, well, I've been and seen them, and they said they would take them off in the near future anyway. So
yeah.
And the other thing is that we had a discussion at council last Wednesday on Three Waters, whether we stay as we are with the government. And as I said before, it was decided that we would stay with the government and not go for what's known as the splinter group. Okay. So that's me. Thank you.
Councillor Mugford, when you referred to the water or the flooding in Glen Tunnel, this is that continuation of down the back of those houses that you're referring to? Different.
It's coming off the hill by the old stables.
Oh yes.
Down the road.
Yes.
Down Phillip Street. Yes. In through Jerry Van Leeuwen's place into his drive or his place, and then comes out into Railway Terrace, the second house along. And so Daniel is looking into what we can do, but it's quite strange because some of the swale that runs through there, someone's built a deck over it, so it's really hard to know how the water's getting through anyway.
That's a new issue, is it?
No. We were with Daniel about a year ago. We observed that there were a lot of old culverts that obviously the old timers had put in because a lot of water goes through there. They were all blocked or filled off, or we didn't know where they went. And the last flood they had, I rang various people up in Glen Tunnel and I said, we don't want to know you've got water around your houses. We want you to go and take photos and tell us where the water is coming from, because that is much more useful. We know you've got water around your houses, and it just seems to come out of the hill, basically.
Yeah. It comes down the road, and if you go there and have a look, it's so obvious it's changed the colour of the road where the water is actually flowing. And so anyway, so Daniel's looking at that, so it's being worked on.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Mugford. Councillor Gallagher, have you got any other comments you'd like to make?
Just two, John, thank you. As Judith had said in her report about the repairs to the road from being dug up for broadband, I was working with council to get that rectified. Last weekend, one of the water aces down Hoskins Road overflowed and was flooding the cemetery, and have worked with council staff to get that rectified. So really pleased with the work the council have done with these issues that we've got. Other than that, nothing else to report. I haven't attended any other meetings.
Thank you
Other
for
than council.
Right. Thank you for those verbal reports. Any questions for either of the councillors? Okay, going back to the agenda, and the next item is the manager's report, which I suggest we move and acknowledge and accept. Douglas is not really here to answer that, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So I'll move from the chair that we accept the manager's report for March. If someone would like to second it, please. Thank you, Ken. All in favour, please say aye. I'll now turn over to Douglas. I understand, Douglas, you're going to give us a little bit of an update on some asset developments or issues or projects you're working on.
Yeah, I can, John.
Well,
Just quickly.
Good, thank you.
All right. So, with regard to COVID and with the rat testing, we've been using our community response teams to provide rats into the community, particularly in those more remote communities of Arthur's Pass, Castle Hill and Lake Coleridge. So they all got a supply of rat tests probably about 3 weeks ago now, just to help them with having to, if they had to do tests. And then we've just been working with a few other communities providing that and supporting the DHB there. In terms of facilities, just a couple of key ones. Councillor Mugford referred to the lining of the shed. There's a question there for you, Bob, in terms of whether you want it sealed. If you can go back to Kevin on that.
Have done.
Oh, beauty. We're working at the moment on replacing the house at the campground. It has come to the end of life, so we've acquired another one from Twizel. Ironically, that's where the first one came from, and that's probably be in place probably more in May, I think it is. And we're looking at switchboards at Glenroy and Kimberley at the moment. In terms of, we're doing some work, as you know, on Darfield Pool. So our property staff and James Richmond, who leads Active Selwyn, are just working on some options there in terms of what we need to do and trying to make it a space where people will have a little bit more of a different experience. So just hoping to spend as little as we can on what you might call renewal maintenance work, and as much as possible on creating a bit of a fun environment. But that's just always a tricky balance, how you spend your funds. Mrs. Pascoe's reported on the reserve at Kiwi, but we've got some work on Tramway Road underway in from about mid-April in terms of that boundary, and some landscaping, playground landscaping work, which is complete in mid-June. Fire and emergency, as you know, are building or extending their station in Darfield, so that does mean they'll be moving out of their space that they have there in Matthias Street. I think I've got the right one there, somewhere possibly in April, May, but I think it'll be more like June, July. And two other comments is work on the shed there in Matthias Street, the open sheds with Community Trust Patrol and the Vehicle Trust, so that's good. And the final one is TIF funding. So we've been extremely fortunate in getting money from the Tourism Infrastructure Fund for council toilets, and particularly in the Malvern ward. So we've got a wee bit of a backlog because there's just so many people getting money for toilets. So, but we will expect to get completed our toilet upgrade at Horata this year, the Sheffield one, which Mr. Woods has referred to. And there's 5 other projects that we're putting in for money for what's called TIF 6. And I've got to say, we're hugely keen, we're really positive, but we've done really well. So if we can get these ones, would be awesome. So first one's Darfield. So the grain shed toilet was down for an upgrade, refreshment sort of in the 23-24 financial year, but we're seeking funding to completely replace that toilet block, which has really gone beyond its end of time. We're also looking to see if we can get an upgrade for the Waimak Gorge toilet, as it's tired, it's fair to say. And the other two issues of interest for you will be, we're seeking funding for the improving the rest area at Joyce Reserve there in Glen Tunnel, trying to get that sealed, make it a slightly more attractive area to get into. And the same at Lake Linden, as these are sort of areas that the Tourism Infrastructure Fund do indicate they're happy to fund. Finally, we were looking to apply for funding for our public toilets in Darfield and Kuwi to connect them to the reticulated sewer, but that sewer won't be available for a connection near our toilets prior to June 2023. So we'll have to apply for that in a future year. So just a wee update there from Property Matters. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Douglas. Question for Douglas, please.
I'd like to ask a question, nothing to do with what he's talked about, but I know the council have been going around tidying up the difficult Toby boxes with the water reticulation in the villages and various townships, and they're now working on the difficult ones. So I was asked at Coleridge when the last couple of difficult ones up the top of the village might be done, and I know they're particularly difficult because they service several of them service various houses from one Toby box. So I was going to get hold of Murray England, but I haven't got around to it. So I'll ask through this medium if I can have an answer, please, especially for me relating to Coleridge.
Oh, I'll capture that question for you. No problems. Thank you.
John.
Yes.
Douglas mentioned in his report that the tramway road boundary of the Kuwi Reserve is going to be worked on and planted. The committee have offered to do that work themselves, well, to save funding and to get it done, as it were. Has that request gone anywhere? Is that possible?
Planting's not normally such an issue. I'll have to check, Judith, that we've signed off on that. But yeah, planting something with your health and safety protocols is reasonably straightforward. So I will make a note for circulation to you.
Yes, yeah, they probably just need to be communicated with. They've made the offer. They'd very much like to do it. They need to know if they can't, why they can't do it, considering they did all the rest of it.
That seems like it's a given then, isn't it?
They'll be hard to say no to, Douglas.
No.
Further questions or comment?
Yeah, John?
Yes.
Yeah. It's actually not to do with this, but I just thought I forgot to tell you before, the Glen Tunnel undergrounding is not going ahead. It was that's been taken out of it will be taken out of the annual plan.
That's the balance of the township.
The balance of the township because of the cost that's come in at 5 times what thought it would cost. So yeah, so that's just another thing that's happening.
Right. I could just make another. Ken.
Yeah, just I know it's not your area of responsibility, Douglas, but the roadworks carried out on behalf of NZTA on the Darfield, on the West Melton side of Aylesbury Bend, that has broken up already. It's absolutely atrocious work, and I don't know what the hell they had, or what the contractor was that they had, but can we make a complaint to NZTA?
Yeah, well, you obviously can. Probably the easiest thing is a snap send solve into our system, which we then forward to Waka Kotahi. So if you are able to do that, a photo of it, that would be sensible if you can safely do that.
Yep. Okay.
John, I've been reading some correspondence about that work, and I think Waka Kotahi is just as appalled as we are. They used a subcontractor they hadn't used before because the original subcontractor wasn't available. This subcontractor obviously knew very little about road repairs, and they are going to redo all of them. But of course it won't be instant, but from the correspondence I've read, they are very much aware of the appalling state of that road.
Well, hang on. Okay, thank you. Talking about projects Very pleased, Douglas, to see the work being done in the sheds at the back of the old Cyclone building of the libraries. They've done a great job there, getting them lined, getting them all prepared. They've just got to put in the roller doors to take all those community cars. So well on the way. It's been wired, lights, the whole lot. It's looking very good.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Douglas. I'll move that Douglas's verbal report be received. If someone would like to second that, second by Councillor Gallagher. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. And now on to, there's no further reports, are there? So I'm now on to discretionary, and if it return to the request from the Selwyn Women's Issue Group for $225.
I'll move that.
Moved by Judith Pascoe, seconded by Councillor. Seconded by Karen Mears. Any discussion? All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, turning over the page of the agenda now to discretionary fund report, where and Judith keeps making comments to the general public, and I've approached a couple of groups to indicate, but we are now told that that money will be carried over, so it perhaps doesn't have quite the urgency that it had.
I know of some people that are going to apply, but they haven't quite got their act ready together.
Yep, okay. Over the page, statement of financial performance is there for information. And then there are a number of minutes from various groups, which then leads me on to, is there any general business?
I've got a couple of things.
Sorry, Bill.
I was just going to say that those minutes, the Sheffield Waddington Township Committee, it did put in a minute for the 17th of February or whenever it was.
Right.
Yeah, because it goes on to talk about it later on. The actual minutes are there, so it's just not recorded as being received. Yeah.
All right. I'll ask the secretary just to have a look at that or check that, please.
That's just a normal mistake,
right?
Because the actual copy of the minutes are there. Yeah, which we indicate one or two things there that were in my report, and that was the condition of the old West Coast Road deteriorating quite rapidly, and also the lack of that I mentioned before about the lack of reception for cell phones on the old West Coast Road.
The old West Coast Road is a council road, not a highway, isn't it, Bill?
Sorry?
The old West Coast Road is a Selwyn road, not a state highway, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Selwyn road, yeah.
It's a Selwyn road.
Yeah.
And obviously the cell phone reception, which is similar to that bit around Kirwee and Aylesbury, we all hope one day will be filled in with a bit more or better coverage.
Yeah. But of course, like cell phones, as we well know, are used personally, but they're also used for emergencies as well.
Oh, for sure.
Like car accidents and things of that nature. So it, if that reception can be improved, it should be done.
None of us would dispute that. We would all support you, Bill. There's a little bit of commercial reality comes in there, which doesn't seem to necessarily achieve the outcome that you're seeking and we're all seeking.
Yeah, but there's more people live on the old West Coast Road than Arthur's Pass, and Arthur's Pass gets a good reception.
Yep, so it's all about towers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so were there further comments from any other board members? Judith?
Yes. Yep. One of the reasons my Kirwee Community Committee took the first option in the choices was that it allowed them to receive and use funding through the council if these committees go it alone as independent organisations, the only people they can approach for funding are the council, because they're not an organised, a legal organisation. They really can't go to any of the big national organisations. I think that sort of leads me to my second point, is I think we, the board, need to have a conversation, a chat, a small workshop about all these questions about how our committees are going to manage, what the enthusiasm is, what they're going to do about elections, when we're going to hold elections for these committees. I know I'd like the Kerwee one to hold them about mid-year, well before October, because we need to look at the Kerwee Reserve Committee is going to obviously not function anymore. Some of their duties, their oversight, their enthusiasm needs to transfer to a blended committee of some kind. So I think we, the board, need to have a discussion, and I know it was very generous of the Chief Executive to offer to chair the last one we had. I think we just need to have one with us initially to get these questions and thoughts together, and then put them to people like Douglas, people like the Chief Executive, and just see how we're going to work this, because we've got to work with our committees, and we don't even know as a community board how we're going to represent ourselves at these committees and then through to council. We need to have a process and a path, and we need to be clear in our own minds how we do this as well.
Look, I agree with everything you say, Judith, but you would say that and I agree with everything, but applying for funds, they're in fact no worse off than what they were when they were with council, because they couldn't apply to outside bodies anyway. So it hasn't changed.
Yeah, yes, but there are other little things like, for example, the Highland Games, that there are people that can do volunteer work and get funds, and there's all sorts of little things like that pop up. And I've also, Bob and I have been working with Coleridge, and Bob and I are going to have a get together before their next meeting at the end of April, and just have a bit of a framework on what oh, shut up.
That's the phone you're referring to.
Doesn't want to stop.
It's a very noisy bird you've got there, Karen. Hello.
Throw it out the door.
Right.
And we're going to just brainstorm a few rules and send it up to them to have a talk, so that when we have our meeting, we have a bit of a framework and we're not all over the place of what people think. There's actually been some thought put into it by the committee, and then Bob and I thought that if it all works well, it could be a framework which we would take to the committees that I go to, and then they can add things to it that were pertinent to themselves. But we just thought that we needed to have a bit of a baseline. So that's what we're going to do anyway. And when we get a bit further down the track, we can circulate that to the board anyway, if they're interested in seeing the work that we have done. I've got a couple of things I just want to say. I actually brought up at
hang on, Karen, do you want to?
I'm sorry, I actually haven't finished that topic.
Sorry.
At the moment, these committees use the council as a bank account. So if they do fundraising, it goes into an account with the council, discretionary account or something else. If they're not part of the council, if they become individual committees, they may not want to go down the rather onerous track of becoming an incorporated society with all the legal obligations that actually puts you into. If they do fundraising, what do they do with the money? They can't open a bank account. They can't, where the council would be generous enough to allow them to bank in a special little fund or not is another thing altogether. But there is no way they can hold the money unless in a private account. So there's all these kinds of questions to ask. what communication will they get from council? Will they get any at all? The committees that are affiliated to council, as I understand it, that's just a temporary arrangement. That's just at the moment. I don't think it's permanent. Perhaps Bob or Jenny could clarify that, but I don't think that's a permanent arrangement for them. There's a lot of questions there about how these committees can actually work.
Look, I agree, Judith. Bob? Yep.
Yeah, I think if Karen was to supply the board with the what came from Colgate last week and the answers that have just received for that, they do answer quite a few of those things. So that's one committee that put these questions forward and got answers. So
all right.
I think that would be important.
But I agree with what Judith said. Going down the path of incorporated society is probably a challenge or a step that most would not want to do. I agree that if you're fundraising, it's not, you can't, the difficulties of opening a bank account are really difficult now. And you would prefer not to use someone's private account to have to put the money into it. But I think you're going to find that all these groups are going to create solutions to the problem that will suit them. And it may be different in each case in each community to solve that problem. But there are, ways and means around this, and I'm sure. But I understand what you're saying, Judy, as to whether it's possible, and that's over to council, whether they want a whole lot of little bank accounts, and probably the answer may well be no. But let's carry on this dialogue as we get nearer towards June.
Yes, so I think the board also needs to be very clear in their own mind what their roles with these committees will be and what they can offer them. We perhaps even need to put forward a proposal to some of these committees. These are the things we can do for you. This is, we'd welcome your invitation to your meetings, etc., etc. So I think we need to talk about that.
Yep, I agree. Thank you. So now back to you, Karen.
And can I?
Sorry, yes, Bill.
Chair, can I follow on from that?
Yes,
because
certainly.
I think it's important. Because remember at our last meeting, I brought up the fact that our local committee that built the bus shelter, the community board gave them $1,000, and that money was put into a private bank account.
Right. And
then there was also the TAG Engineering donated $250, and that was put into a private account.
Yeah.
And I questioned Denise about it, and her answer, nobody's bothered to mention her answer. And her answer was, with those people, if they want money from the council will allocate the money separately to themselves, sort of thing, and then the council will pay the bill, not the people themselves. Like if there was an invoice for a particular item, the committee that didn't have a bank account wouldn't pay for it, would submit it to the council, and the council will pay it.
So Bill, did you get
the council will only pay to accredited recipients, not private bank accounts.
So Bill, did you get the impression that a member of one of those committees, for example, could pay an account, let's say it's $200, and if it had a minute or it had a verified, that the council would then reimburse a private individual with suitable documentation?
I didn't pick that up from what Denise said, because she narrowed it down to, say, hiring the hall for their meetings.
Yeah.
So instead of giving them $800 for the year or whatever it was, they would give them a credit for that amount,
which is
logical. And then every time they used the hall, the council, like Denise's department, would pay the other department for it.
Yeah.
And so the money that was from the council would only go to accredited accounts, not to private individuals.
Well,
other than when you make an application to like people make an application for a grant to attend a water ski tournament or something like that. The money then goes, I'm not too sure where the money goes in. I am sure that it would go to the individual. I'm not too sure about that.
So therefore, if you follow that logic along, to Councillor Mugford, who I just see wants to speak, if I in one of those groups had a project and we had applied to the council and were granted some funds, that maybe those funds could be paid out on receipt of invoices for work done.
Well, that's right, on a paid statement or something of that
Yeah.
nature.
Where in that particular case, an individual, or they may, as we all do in many groups, we do work or make a payment for, if I use the golf club for example, and then you supply an invoice with appropriate documentation to the treasurer and you get reimbursed.
Or someone like the Springfield Township Committee has their annual Christmas celebrations.
Okay. I think there
now.
are ways around the solution without making it too complicated. But
we need to be clear in our own minds so that we can help our committees and let them know what the answers are.
I don't dispute that, Judith, but I think you'll find that different groups may manage it differently that suits their style or their pattern. So as far as that goes, but agreed. So can I pass back to Karen? Judith, are you finished?
Yeah. Sorry, Karen, but I thought it was
right.
No, it's all good, Bill.
I will also forward you. I don't know whether you all missed this, but it came from Therese and it was from Denise Kidd, and she answered these funding questions on March the 1st. And she said basically some of these things that Bill has said.
Right.
But when people get outside money, I can't see that the council will want to create a bank account, because that's what they've been very busily trying to run away from for the last 6 years. And that will be the committee's place to find where they would put that outside funded money. But there's anything from the council. And so I'll forward that letter again to you all, because she has explained just what Bill was saying. In the list, I think last time I commented on some of these committees that aren't actually in the committee minutes, because I don't know who takes notice, if any of the staff take notice of what these communities are, but you need to get rid of Hororata Citizens Committee and John Morton there, because there was some information got sent out about committees or something a while ago, and some of my committees had all this information. It was a muck up when they were told their email addresses, council email addresses, were folding at the end of January, and a lot of the stuff went to all the old email addresses. Hororata was a particular one that wouldn't have had any of the information, and they were having a meeting if I hadn't rung and asked a couple of people if they'd been sent the information, and none of them had it. So I think that there needs to be a little bit of tidying up done there to make sure that the relevant people are getting their information, because some communities have gone ahead with all the change going on and they have amalgamated, and this needs to be acknowledged. And I think Hororata Citizens Committee needs to go, and so do all those contacts that are with it. The other thing I talked about at the last board meeting about transit and the naming of Highway 72, 77 and where it started and stopped. And I actually sent them an email, and Transit actually rang me not very long ago and talked through, and he said it is confusing. So Highway 72 is not actually a highway, it's Route 72, and it starts at Amberley and comes through right through to Temuka Washdyke, and Highway 77 starts in Christchurch and merges at Homebush with Route 72, and then departs Route 72 at the turn off to the Mount Hutt ski field. And for some unknown reason, they take Highway 77 through the Wainama Road there at that turn off to the Mount Hutt ski field, and to go through Methven. I'm not sure why it didn't happen at the Mount Hutt corner. But anyway, we had quite a good discussion, and I just said, well, because half the stuff's disappeared off the maps now. But he agreed it was confusing, and he has put it forward to the maps people.
We'll look forward to a positive result.
Well, it was good. I just thought you might be interested to know they actually did come back to me. I'd just about given up on them.
Well, persistence usually prevails.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm still on general business for anybody before I close the meeting, or any further comments. Right. My last comment is the next meeting, the chief executive tells me, will be at the library in person.
Yep.
All right. So that's something for us to all look forward to. And on that note, I will declare the community board meeting closed. I would thank you all for your attendance. Thank anybody who was listening on live, and thank you, Madam Secretary, and thank you, Douglas, for representing the staff, and wish you good evening and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Thanks,
Bye.
Ray.
Thank you.
Yeah, goodbye.